But as far as gradient boundary, that is the method in Texas to establish a boundary on inland water boundaries. It evolved from the 1923 court case between Texas and Oklahoma, and on the Red River. And at that time, the Supreme Court actually ended up appointing two surveyors, Arthur Kidder and Arthur Stiles. And Arthur Kidder was representing the interest of the United States and of Oklahoma, and then Arthur Stiles was representing the interest of Texas. And the Supreme Court gave them instructions. They said, what we want is a line on the bank of a river defining. And they said, the court actually gave them instruction on what they wanted, and then basically said, now you guys, you surveyors, go out here and figure out how this line is going to be placed in a repeatable fashion. So, and they spent about 3 years of their lives out studying on the Red River. And of course, there again, like the Rio Grande, it's one that is subject to fluctuation, lots of moving back and forth in that wide sandy valley. So I understand why they spent 3 years up there monumenting, working, everything else. But they did come out with a repeatable method. And then Texas courts adopted that, so that is the methodology that we as surveyors use to establish boundaries on inland water courses.
Well, and that's on all inland water courses that are deemed navigable by law or navigable in fact, correct?
Well, really, there are times when you need to make the decision, is this non-navigable or is it navigable? And when you're doing that, the approach that we have chosen to use is to go ahead, even a non-navigable, more narrow stream will make banks, will act just like the bigger rivers. So we have chosen to use that methodology. I think there's a couple of court cases that go back to maybe edge of water for navigable, non-navigable determinations. But in the work that we've done, since the courts and the Texas courts have pretty much adopted it, we felt like that was the most prudent methodology to approach it. So that's what we have used.
One other question on navigability of a waterway. If a waterway, no matter how wide it is tidally influenced, does that have any effect on the navigability decision?
Not, well, your decision is already made as to the sovereignty. If it's influenced by the ebb and flow of tide, then the state will have interest there.
So then
regardless of size.
Okay, so then the issue of navigability goes away. It definitely is a state, what is under the water is state property.
That's right, and it's not just the Gulf, it's the bays, the estuaries, the inland rivers as far up as there's ebb and flow of tide.
Right.
That it will be state ownership.
I wondered because like some of the creeks in South Texas that don't appear to be all that navigable, but they are tidally influenced. You can tell that when the tide rises, they go up. When the tide goes down, they go down. So
right.
That's another thing. Another thing you get into is, and I have a paper here, and it's called "What is a Stream?" I mean, first off, to identify whether it is a natural stream or not. A lot of times, it's merely a gully or a drainage source, and it only flows when it rains. It doesn't have a permanent water supply. You know, in order to be a natural stream, it has to have bed and banks and a natural water supply. It could be dry at times, but most of the time it flows. And sometimes these are a little difficult to identify. And you know, and we get called upon occasionally to they go take a well location out here on Horge Creek somewhere, and they say, is Horge Creek a navigable stream or not? I mean, if it is, we need to go. As a matter of fact, we had one just last week up here right out of the center on up here, and wanted to know if it was a natural stream. You know, navigability for the most part was determined at the time the original surveys were made. This is not always true, but I